Hi, good morning. We are live. I am Cate Luzio, founder and CEO of Luminary and the host of Goaldigger, Finding Your Voice right here on LinkedIn Live every Friday at 9:30 Eastern. And one of the big reasons we host this every week is to amplify the stories and the voices of incredible leaders around the world, in particular women leaders. And today I am really excited to have Deb Boulanger, and I cannot do her bio justice. So I'm going to let her tell her own story. But so happy to have Deb, not only because she's become a friend since the day she walked into Luminary, she's also a Luminary ambassador and just an unbelievable badass woman that I am honored to know. And so, Deb, you are not only the founder, I'm not going to do justice, but let me try. You're the founder of Life After Corporate. You're founder of the Launch Lab. You lead the entrepreneurial chapter of Elevate, and you've got about 10 more jobs. So I'm asking you to give us a little bit about what you do today, right? All of these amazing jobs and everything that you're leading and creating. But then we're going to go back into your story and talk about how you found your way there.
Sure, happy to. So yes, I am the CEO of The Great Do-Over. That's my corporation and my original business, which was leadership coaching for women leaders in corporate. I also did some relationship coaching back then. I did some health coaching. And then because of my past career in product development, product management, and the services space, I saw so many women who were making this leap from corporate to entrepreneur, and I saw them struggle. And I think we've talked about this before, you've seen something similar. They didn't really know how to launch a business, but they had a passion for making an impact through their work. And I thought, wow, I can mash up my corporate career and my coaching career. And I created the Launch Lab for Women Entrepreneurs, which is a 12-week accelerator for women who are just making the leap and saying, I've got this passion, I've got this idea, I have no idea how to monetize it, I have no idea how to launch this. And we bring them through the paces of making sure you have a validated business idea, you have a money-making business model, you know how to message it, you know how to sell it. I always say, if you're not comfortable selling, you either have to get over it, hire someone else to do it, or go back and get a job, because entrepreneurship is all about selling. And then Life After Corporate was my baby this year, which is the podcast. And so I know there's so many women out there, maybe you're listening to this right now, and you're wondering, should I stay or should I go? Is this something that I could actually do? So I know we share that in common too, Cate.
Yeah. And then you also work with one of our other partners, and I think that's actually how we originally got connected, was through our Elevate partnership. And you do a lot. Most people will think Elevate has this corporate bend, right? And they do, but they also have an entrepreneurial piece, and you happen to be very well involved in the New York chapter of their sort of entrepreneurial focus.
Yeah, I loved Elevate. I loved my membership in Elevate. And I realized that so many of the Elevate members were in that spot of either just made the leap or thinking about making the leap. And I actually went to Christy Wallace and I said, hey, you have a segment of your population here that needs some separate programming. I was then leading another group in New York of women entrepreneurs. And I said, I'd love to bring my community with your community. And she said, that sounds great. It's right in line with what we're thinking. And lo and behold, became the New York chapter leader for Elevate Entrepreneurs, which became global. So now we meet twice a month, the first and third Thursdays. And we have some amazing programming. And it's all about community. And so we have created that community. And it's great to blend our communities.
Oh, the power of community within community within community, right? It can go so deep and so broad is really what we've focus on at Luminary. And I think it's bringing all of these communities together. You bring women and men that don't look like you together. You bring different perspective, you bring different ideas, and what can be created out of that is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
But before I go into sort of how you got here, how do you find the time to do all of this, right? Because it's a lot, Deb.
Yeah, it's so funny. People say that, and I feel like it doesn't feel like so much to me. And I'm just a creator. I've got something new coming up called the Six Figure Accelerator for graduates of the Launch Lab. I'm doing a live training called, what's it called? The Up Level Masterclass for planning for 2021. And I think it's a matter of automation and delegation. So I'm a huge fan of technology and using technology wherever I can to automate most of the daily tasks. I also rely on my team, my virtual team, to keep me together and keep things running behind the scenes and get clients onboarded. So I think that's it. Automation, delegation, and making sure that I am true to my core. And I know you and I talked on the Life After Corporate podcast about your North Star, and is what I'm doing, is the activity I'm doing right now in fulfillment of my mission.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important that we raise this idea of delegation, right? And automation, because now we're in a different world than we were even 9 months ago. But I think a lot of people will take so much of it on their own plate, and it's really hard, right? Whether you're running a space like we are in a business, or you're a solopreneur, women, as we know, take a lot on our shoulders, and we haven't been the best delegators most of the time in our careers. And so it's like you want to control things, but you want to make sure everything's done right. And releasing or relinquishing some of that control is so important, so that you can execute and you can succeed on each of these pieces that you're working on.
Yeah, you have to function in your zone of genius. Just because you can do a Canva graphic doesn't mean you should, unless that's part of your mission. I mean, I love recording the podcast. I love creating the content. And then I love handing over the marketing of that, because truthfully, Shannon on my team knows a whole lot more about Instagram stories and interesting graphics than I have any desire to learn. So my role in my business is really chief content creator, because online marketing, online businesses, this is a content play. And you know that in your pivot with the community at Luminary, creating the digital membership and then creating programming around serving your ideal audience. And so that's what so much of online marketing and online service delivery is all about.
So I want to talk about a few things in this conversation. We're going to get to the pay gap for entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, because it's not talked about a lot. The pay gap in general is, and it's something you and I both are passionate about. But let's back up. So you're now having this incredible do-over of a career, right? And do-over is not a bad word, right? A do-over is, we can now have 4 or 5 careers in our lives versus maybe our parents have, right? It was that one job, it was very linear. But what led you to doing all of this? Like, what is at the heart of your story that sort of propelled you into entrepreneurship and wanting to do this to really raise women business owners up and make them successful?
Yeah, so I think my story is very similar to many women out there who have either made the leap or they're thinking about it. I lost myself in my life. I was consumed by my career, and I was I put a lot of performance pressure on myself. So, if you're a Strength Finders coach, I am strategic, achiever, activator, all the things that bring action to a business focus. And the problem with achievers is you can actually end up burning out because it's so much about achieving and performing. And that was my situation. I found myself actually in my early 50s hitting burnout at the peak of my career. I had never been more successful in my life before. And at the peak of my career, realizing I have a 13-year-old son, I have a marriage that's not working, and I don't have any friends that I don't work with. I mean, that was kind of like the reality. I was like, oh, I am so consumed by work. And I just started looking for what's next. And, everyone says, how do I decide? How do I find my passion? How do I find my purpose? And that's really the inside job. It's really going inside and asking, what is it that I am passionate about? What is the change I want to see in me? And what is the change that I want to deliver? And realizing that it doesn't have to be perfect. And that the stories, I think the biggest insight for me was that the story I was making up for myself, which was, really, do you know how much money I make? I mean, this was just the chat I would have with myself, and the fear of, oh my God, I'm going to be homeless. Am I being irresponsible? I'm a mom. Will I end up in a box under a bridge? And literally, I've had people say that to me. And the truth is, you have to look at your fear, because I think fear is what keeps people stuck. And you and I have talked that, just because you decide to make the leap doesn't mean that this is a permanent choice. If you don't like it, or if it doesn't work out for you, look at your options. But the most important thing is not to stay stuck because you're afraid that nothing else is going to work.
And that fear, that uncertainty is so embedded in us. Right. And I do think that is something that ails women more than men. I think we know that just in corporate America, when women don't go for the job, the whole HP's study that does now Lean In takes, but it is this fear of failure. But you know what I've learned, Deb, is for me, it's not the fear of failure, because listen, you fail, right? You fail, you get yourself back up, you don't do well, you get yourself back up, you brush yourself up. For me, it was, I think, and still is, so I'm being, as always, very direct and vulnerable, is the fear of others watching you fail, right? To your point about, this is how much money I make, this is my big job, this is, my network. I think it's hard to sort of, whether you're going into being an entrepreneur or making a big career move as well, that becomes your calling card. And then so as this network that you've built over 20 plus years can potentially watch, it's really scary.
That was my biggest motivator, Cate. It's so funny that you mentioned that, because I felt like, just like rising up the corporate ladder, and there are so many women behind you that are watching you and asking themselves, if you can do it, can I do this too? The same is true. I just got chills, because the same is true. And I remember telling myself in those very early days that I can't fail, because I am responsible. I am responsible for being a role model to show other women how they can do this too, how they can make bold moves in their lives and their careers, and they're going to be okay. And I had forgotten all about that until you mentioned it. It's great.
But it's so true, right?
Yeah.
And I felt very similar. I was saying the other day, I was talking to someone, I said, I was for 20 something years corporate, right? And that's okay. I loved it. I thrived in that environment. I really did. And that doesn't mean I'll never go back to it, right? I'm 45. But for me, it was that responsibility I felt when I walked away from the big banking job, about all those younger women that I had met and mentored, and even men too, and saying, yeah, I'm going to be here and we can do this. And then I'm out, right? So taking what I had done and what I did, and then making that bigger. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're doing that for women. But what I think how did you actually say, okay, I'm done, and this is what I want to focus on, supporting women business owners? Because as much as it is a huge population and we're growing and there are a tremendous amount, we know the stats, what made you say, I'm going to focus on this population?
So it was a journey. I was 5 years in, because when I made the leap, my son was 13. And when he was 18 and went to college, I remember sitting around the kitchen table thinking, oh, okay, I'm an empty nester now. I'm a single mom. So I have all this time. What's next? And I think it's always asking yourself those questions. And I was talking to a very good friend of mine who's in this space right now. And one of the blessings of having friends and colleagues who watch you is I'm their go-to coach, right? So I'm the one that they go to when they're in this spot. But she said, I am talking to coaches and I am trying to figure out, what my passion is and what I could be doing and what's needed in the world. And I said, just stop. It's an inside job. This is so when I ask myself that question, and I'm a big journaler, I journal every morning. I have for decades. And I asked, what's next? What's next for me? And what came out was the Passion Project. And actually, I trademarked a name called the Passion Project Incubator. And I never launched under that name. It became the Launch Lab. But it's a matter of just listening to your internal voice. I mean, I think we have all the answers that we're looking for. And we spend so much time worrying about what if I make a mistake, or what if I'm homeless, or where's the money going to come from? And our minds are like hoarders' houses. And you have all of those thoughts that are like accumulated piles of old magazines or old VHS tapes that, you no longer need, but keep playing and playing and playing. And in order to do that, you really have to clear out the mind. So for me, what you really want to know is I went on a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And I did that silent meditation retreat every year for silent, no words. But you can shut off your mouth, but you can't shut off your mind. I mean, it is a little nerve-wracking to be silent for 10 days. I mean, I was making up sitcoms in my mind about all the other people who were on retreat with me. I gave them roles and names, and it was funny, but it's a matter of tuning into your own signal. And, whether you meditate, whether you journal, or, you pray, whatever your channel is for tapping into a bigger conversation than the one that you're having in your head, then that's the channel to tune into. And getting inspiring people in your life like me and Cate.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I love everything that you do. I mean, I've watched you since that day we sat at the kitchen table in Luminary, if you remember that meeting we had.
I do.
Right. And we just talk. I mean, we could sit here and talk for hours about so many different things. But I want to dig in a little bit to what you're doing now. And in particular, this issue around valuing ourselves as assets, our businesses. And so this will be applicable to women business owners, but also anyone in corporate or anything that they're doing, right? Now I'm saying whether you work for yourself or you work for someone else, right? You have to value who you are. And that comes in the form of compensation and as a business owner in pricing. And you and I love this topic, but we continually hear about the pay gap, right? 70 cents or 80 cents on the dollar or less for women of color, much less. But a lot of times we hear about venture capital and that number, that 2%. But we also know 70+% of women-owned businesses self-fund their business, right?
Yep.
They should. Not every company is made to take on investment. But the revenue gap for women-owned businesses to their male peers is they're making 30 cents on the dollar from a revenue.
30 cents. Yep. 260% wider than corporate.
So talk about that. Why do you think that is? What are we doing to, and I know both you and I are on the same page on this, but why do you think that is? And why has that become such a passion for you? Actually, very recently, you're like, this number has to change.
Yeah. Once I discovered that, and I was putting together a presentation on pricing and just did a Google search on, pay gap, women entrepreneurs versus men entrepreneurs. And I came upon that study and that number, and it was shocking. And I think it's because we didn't have a whole lot of role models growing up. At least I didn't. I didn't have anyone in my family who was an entrepreneur, never mind a woman entrepreneur. So I just followed in my father's footsteps. He was a CFO. He was in corporate. So, that's what you do. And so this sense of, and women aren't taught to value themselves in a way that has to do with compensation and money. At least those were not the messages that I received. Even in the corporate world, let's be honest, there are more women in HR and
Function.
sales and marketing that are traditional women oriented roles. And so that's why I felt like I really broke through the glass ceiling in owning a line of business and being a product manager for a $32 million business. And then I started to realize that, there may have been some inequities. And so it's like you get what you ask for. And so we undervalue ourselves. You're undervaluing your services. You're undervaluing what you're charging because you're making mistakes like charging by the hour, or because women are service oriented typically in their business ventures. They want to charge something that people can afford. So you've got your head in your customer's wallet, which is not where it belongs. Because when you do that, you undervalue your client, you also undervalue yourself, and you don't get to pay yourself enough. And then you cause your own hardship.
Right.
So I think one of the things that hit me was a concept called return on advantage. And it was so much more important than return on investment. So let's just take the example of someone who was in HR and a leader who was helping people advance their careers, advance their skills, who's now a career coach, and she is helping people negotiate their salaries when they change jobs. So there's an immediate, like, maybe I'll get $10,000 more in this job if I can negotiate better. And she says women rarely negotiate. They rarely negotiate in the job process. And then if you get a sign-on bonus, so not only do you have extra cash in your pocket, that increase in your base and salary will impact future bonuses. If you negotiate a level up, then you're going to increase and build upon that career success. So it's a matter of understanding your value and understanding your worth, and that's a journey.
Yeah, the stat is actually women when they negotiate, and that's if and when they negotiate, the stat is 30% less than what men negotiate for. That's a big number, right?
Right. So use some big numbers. I mean, really, if we're going to give people some practical advice, the next time you're out there and you're actually negotiating for your next job, or even if you're talking to someone who's a potential client, now to do this, you have to understand your own value. And when I understood my own value of what I was bringing to the table as someone who was a product launch executive and bringing my clients through this process and enabling them to replace their corporate salary, well, there was a lot of value to that. So you don't want to price yourself off the chart, but you want to make sure that what you're asking as far as compensation from your clients is in alignment with the value that you're delivering. Because if you undercharge, people will question your value. They won't treat your work in the same way. When people are highly invested in themselves through you, they tend to make more progress. They tend to make more substantial change.
100%. And I think the other thing, if you, and there are people that are going to overestimate, and then there's going to be people underestimate. It is a, it's a tricky situation, especially as a business owner, just to making sure. I think that's why I do harp on about doing market analysis and market research and understanding what the landscape looks like. And for people that say, well, there's nobody out there that does what I do. Well, there's something that's a little bit that you can say, okay, that's kind of like that. So look at those numbers. You don't always have to give out your numbers. That's the other thing. We're constantly asked, we work obviously at Luminary with both individuals and corporates. Corporates will say, give us your proposal. And I said, I'm not giving you my proposal until I understand what you need. Then let me build that out, because there's no reason just to give away all of your information. And I think women we are problem solvers, we're fixers, we're go-getters, we're people pleasers. So, okay, you want that information, here you go, right? And I don't actually think that's, in my view, that's the way we should do it.
Yeah, no, I never give out my prices. I say, let's have a conversation. Let's see what you want to accomplish and if we're a good fit for each other. And then we can talk about what that would look like. So it is a matter of understanding your value. And also what you said was so important too, Cate, is value is in the eyes of the ideal client. And when you do your market research right and you understand the value that they get, there's something that I call fake progress, which is when you do the right thing, but at the wrong time. So many women, when they make the leap, think, oh my God, I need a branding consultant. I need a logo. I need to register my LLC. And I call that sharpening your pencils, because yes, it's important to do all of those things, but the first thing you need is a client, and you need validation that people want to buy what you're selling. So, first things first. And there is competition out there. And what I am all about is, how do you create a market of one? How do you create a differentiated strategy so that you're in that blue ocean, to, use an analogy that's been around for a while, right? So blue ocean strategy versus red ocean. You don't want to be and sound just like everyone else. So, if you're a life coach and you're saying, I help people transform from the inside out, that's not a differentiated strategy. No one can really dig their teeth into that. But if you're someone who is, say a fractional CFO, and you're helping people fall in love with their numbers, which a lot of people don't like to look at their finances on a regular basis, and you're helping them save money, make more money, be more profitable, then there's a significant return on advantage. So it's all in how you position yourself out there.
I totally agree. And even if you're in, if you're not a business owner and you're working for someone else, this is also so important, right? It goes to, and there's a comment on the chat, compensation has to be fair. Absolutely. No matter what you're doing. Compensation not only needs to be fair, it needs to be equal, right? And we've got to keep pushing that. And the worst anyone can say is no, right? That's a sales 101. Deb, you and I get that, right? It's the worst one can say is no. You can either spend time trying to reconvince them that they should say yes, or you move on. And some of that is in the corporate world. It's figuring out, do you have the path? Do you have the milestones to get to a yes? If not, then you've got to make a tough decision, right? But you have to control your career, and you have done that masterfully. There's a question that says, curious to know if you used a specific journaling modality outside of asking what's next. And I'm not someone who journals. So Deb, that's all yours.
Absolutely. So back in the early 90s, I read a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And I'm sure many of the people listening or watching here today have heard of Julia Cameron, have heard of The Artist's Way. And it's morning pages. It's just a stream of consciousness. And the thinking is that when you first wake up in the morning, you're as close to your subconscious as you're ever going to get. So it's a great time to just purge whatever's in there. I said, clean out the hoarder's house, empty out that closet so that you can approach your day fresh and open to new insights, new inspiration, new possibilities. These ideas for new businesses, or this idea for, maybe going for a promotion inside your company, is what happens in those quiet moments in between those myriad of thoughts. So becoming clear on, what is it that I really want? What would serve me right now? And there's a difference between courage and confidence, right? Mm-hmm. So courage, you don't have to be fearless to have courage. Courage comes from understanding that there's a fear here, and, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to take action anyway. Confidence comes from taking action and having a positive result and knowing, oh my God, I didn't die. I can do this, and so I think that's important to realize too.
That's our next session, me and you at Luminary. Confidence, because I totally agree. And I think it is, people will say, oh, you started a company, you're getting through the pandemic. Oh, you're no fear. I'm like, wait a second. I have fear every single day, right? I mean, every single day. I woke up this morning and was like, what am I doing? Right? Even though we just celebrated almost our 2-year anniversary. But it's overcoming that, and it's having the confidence to keep going and do different things. And people constantly, and I don't mean to take anything away from the word pivot, when I think of pivot, and I'm an athlete, right? So in particular, basketball, when you pivot, you change directions. And for what I'm doing and what Luminary has done, and I think for a lot of women out there too, and specifically women business owners, they're adapting, right? They haven't necessarily changed the direction of what they're doing or their company. They're adapting to the situation. They are overcoming their fears, and they are having the confidence to do that. And the courage is there as well. It's deep in our bellies, right? So, and you really inspire so many business owners to do that. And so you give a ton, Deb, right? You give, you give, you give. Um, what do you do to take? Like, what do you up?
That's so great. I fall in love with my clients, and I literally have so much fun working with them. So number one, it fills me up to give. I heard years ago that receiving is an act of generosity. So I try to receive whatever is sent my way. So I got a text from a one of my leadership coaching clients. So on the side, I'll coach C-level women leaders who are making transitions. And she said, I got the exact job I asked for. I look back to our notes 6 months ago, and it's like spot on. The money is crazy. I want to send you a gift. So I think that's one thing that fills me up is just clients having that transformation. And I hire my own coach. So I take great pleasure every single year at this time of the year to decide, what do I need to up-level myself in my business? And this is a great question for everyone watching. Who do I need to be to fulfill that vision? So we're heading into the end of the year. You're thinking about next year. Soon you're going to be doing resolutions and vision boards. Ask yourself, who do I need to be in order to step in to that woman, to that role?
Yeah, you said this on the water cooler conversations the other day, and I just love that. And I think, Deb, what you're doing is just amazing, incredible, inspirational, but so needed in this environment in particular. And as we head into 2021, and Luminary is the biggest fan. I personally am a huge fan, and we're excited to continue to work with you and everything that you're doing. For those of you that are watching, and there are a bunch of comments that are great. No fear, action, action, action. Face the fear and take action. Courage. I love the work of lots of different women out there. Where can people find you if they don't already know you?
Yeah, so well, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, wherever you are on social. I am Deb Boulanger or Deborah Boulanger, one of the two. And feel free to stop by thegreatdoover.com. And of course, tune into the Life After Corporate podcast. It's my favorite baby. And there's also a Life After Corporate Facebook group where I do a lot of live training. So I like to be generous with my communities and help people along. So follow us over there in Life After Corporate.
You are absolutely one of the most generous people, regardless of gender, that I know. And I'm so excited that we got you on here, and hopefully I'll see you in person soon. But either way, I'll see you on a Zoom, I'm sure, next week. And we are going to do Courage and Confidence. For everybody, thank you for joining. I know as the numbers around wherever you live are ticking up, just focus on taking it one day at a time. We're keeping, trying to move forward, wear a mask, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay sane. And thank you so much, Deb. And thank you everyone for joining today. Have a fantastic weekend.
Thanks, Kate. And bye, everyone. Take care.